Welcome back to the Ed Morrissey Show podcast. Today is Friday, October 7th, 2022. We're going to have a little change in the podcast, rhythm here. Duane Patterson, Generalissimo from the Hugh Hewitt Show, Master of the Universe, HUGHNIVERSE.com, the troll-free web surfing experience for Hugh Hewitt fans and listeners. He's going to join us on Fridays from now on so that we can kind of do the news of the day, plus, give maybe a little bit of a perspective on the entire week. Duane, thanks for being flexible. I think that this is going to be fun doing this. We started off doing these on Fridays, remember?
Yeah, going way back, I think we actually did do them on Fridays. That's that is true. Good to be back. Friday actually kind of works better for me because, to tell a little family secret, because of Larry Arnn's schedule at Hillsdale, which is increasingly crazier, the more advanced his setting up Hillsdale academies all over the country, charter schools all over the country. He's getting pretty busy, and so we will a lot of times tape 2, 3, sometimes our all-time record is taping 4 Hillsdale dialogues in advance, all in one session. Yeah, and that's after doing a 3-hour radio show. So more times than not, unless it's a breaking news thing, more times than not, it's a lot easier to tape Larry Arnn than it is to do them live. So it gives me a chance to kind of wrap things up, get home from the studio a little earlier, and yeah. So no, Friday mornings actually works pretty good for me.
Well, good. So, it's going to be good. Just to let people know, on days where I'm we're releasing a Amiable Skeptics podcast, we are not doing an Ed Morrissey Show podcast that day. Normally, there may be some exceptions to that, but normally we're going to try to do one of my podcasts a day. And Amiable Skeptics technically isn't a podcast; it's a video show that you watch here at Hot Air. But we're releasing those usually on Thursdays and Mondays. So we're going to probably do those on Thursdays and Mondays. Do Ed Morrissey
space out the content a bit.
Well, space out the content, make sure that we're not, just stepping on, having these video presentations step on each other. So, so that's the reason why you might have seen it was a little bit of a light schedule this week while we're adjusting some other things. But we are still doing the Ed Morrissey Show, and especially, Duane, Andrew, all the fun guests that I've got. It has my podcast has not been put on double secret probation. In other words, Duane, or double secret suspension. Now, I'm going to front this by noting that Mary Katharine Ham is a friend of mine. She's a former contributor at Hot Air, colleague, and I think friend of yours. As
I said on Twitter last night, when her piece came out, her Substack piece came out on why she's been absent from CNN for so long, and she came back with a vengeance. When I saw what she wrote, look, we all have the same feeling for MK. She's like all of us pundits, all of us people that are in conservative media. She's like our niece. She's a member of the family. Yep. I think the way I phrased it is, there is no one on. There is nobody in the game that has a finer character and is a better person than Mary Katharine Ham. She has many peers, but none have a better character than Mary Katharine Ham does. She's just as quality of an individual as you will ever meet.
Right. And again, John Sexton wrote about this last night, right? And he did a fine job. John's post is really good. You should read John's post. It was really a good post, and you
should read Mary Katharine Ham's piece. Is what you're.
Oh, really yeah.
That's
I'm assuming that.
Yeah,
that's the place to start. Start with Mary Katharine Ham's Substack piece, which is John linked to it and he's commenting on it, and sure. I thought that was really good. The reason why I bring up John's post is because we'd already taken sort of one bite at the apple, and a lot of times we don't do multiple bites at the same apple, but. Look, I've been in people management most of my adult life, right? I've run call centers. I'm back in people management for better or worse.
You are doing people management on this Zoom call.
I got to tell you,
boss.
Right, exactly. I feel like Al Pacino in that Godfather film that will not be named, right? Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in.
Yes.
I have never, ever in my entire career, ever even heard of somebody getting suspended without even being notified of it. The normal process in corporations, this isn't a mom and pop operation. CNN was
Jeff Zucker is Dean Wormer, except he only comes up to Dean Wormer's shins. I mean, it's just repulsive what this guy did.
He's repulsive in several aspects. But yes. I mean,
the killer of the piece, when Mary Katharine Ham says, I paid the price for 7 months of being sidelined, and Jeffrey Toobin, who yanked his crank and jerked the gherkin on a Zoom call, he got sidelined for 8 months. So he basically only got a 30-day extension sentence for whipping out the schlong and pound, beating the bishop, whereas by her commenting on it,
obliquely, by the way,
it's just so outrageous.
On Twitter, one tweet where she just mentioned his name, and that got her suspended for 7 months, double secret suspension. Not only did Zucker impose this, one of Zucker's deputies continued it apparently for a brief period of time after Zucker left.
And I'm suspicious I know who. There was that female number 2 that was just a complete head case. Allison somebody, right?
That was his girlfriend.
Yeah, my guess is that's who that was. She didn't name names, but 5 will get you 10. That's who it was.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about the ethics of that situation too. While Zucker is, the point to me is that in any company, and I mean, even I've never even heard of this in a mom and pop, right? In any company, if you have an employee that crosses the line in some way, and I'm not even going to say that Mary Katharine did, but if perceived to have crossed the line, you go to that employee and say, you've crossed the line. We need to talk about this. And it gives that employee at least the dignity of being able to respond to the allegation, right? And Zucker couldn't even give Mary Katharine that. Why? Because he's a gutless coward. That's why.
Yes. And honestly, I'd like to say that this is an isolated event. I mean, it's the way it happened to MK and why it happened to MK is just disgusting. But look, if you're a conservative, if you're the quote conservative voice on MSNBC, if you're the conservative, the token conservative on CNN, and at some point they're in campaign mode, they will literally pay you and just ice you out. And if the phone doesn't ring, it's the MSNBC booker or it's the CNN booker. They will ice out the conservative. They won't let them go. They won't let them out of their contract. They won't let them go play the field and go on another network because they don't want them on another network. What they want is them to just go away. And they have no qualms at all about paying them good money just to ice them out of the game. They did that with our friend Selena Zito at CNN. They have done that with David Drucker when he was at CNN and contributor there. They basically iced him out, and then he finally got to kind of go play the field and
yeah. But I think there's a difference between we just aren't interested in putting him on the air to actually imposing a suspension without ever mentioning it to the person involved.
Correct.
I mean,
it's just
it's gutless, absolutely gutless. These people should never be in charge of other people ever again.
And honestly, did they really honestly think that she was going to stay silent forever and she was just going to cower? Have they ever met her?
That's the reason why they didn't tell her. I mean, that's really the point. The reason why they didn't tell her is because they're afraid of her.
Well,
and they should be, and they should be,
and they should be. I mean, the famous clip from this week was the caught open mic moment of Joe Biden when he was down in Florida saying nobody F's with Biden, right?
Nobody F's with the Biden.
You don't mess with the hammer. You just don't.
Yeah.
I mean, she's gonna come get you at some point.
Yeah.
And she'll do it the right way because she's a classy individual.
Yep.
But she'll come get you. If you come after her, she will get even. Yep. In her own due time, she will get even. And yep. God bless her for the piece she wrote. It was just brilliant.
Well, it was brilliant, but it was infuriating. And and a lot of that has to do with the fact that she's a friend of mine. So I mean, I admit that up front. She's a friend of mine, so a lot of the anger has to do with that. But nobody should be treated that way. If you are an employee or a contractor and you get crosswise with your boss should at least have the residual intestinal fortitude to tell you've gotten crosswise with us.
At least Jeffrey Toobin knew why he was suspended. He knew why he was sidelined. Right.
Yes. The less said about that, the better.
He got
the Toobin part of it.
He got treated better in this. As an employee management situation, he was actually treated better than Mary Katharine Ham.
And I think if you work out the timing on this, he actually was back on the air before Mary Katharine was.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. On to the news of the day, however. And last night, when I was not paying attention, somebody snuck in a Senate election debate in Arizona, and Duane and Hugh are on top of this.
I'm here to report a murder.
I am. Lay it on me, brother.
It was at I think it was at Arizona State. I'm not sure which
ASU. Could have been ASU because ASU is in Phoenix, right? And that would make sense.
I've got a whole bunch of cuts, and they're all under a minute. They're all kind of short, but in my estimation, it was one of the biggest drubbings of a debate I've ever seen. Meaning, for an incumbent Democrat, Mark Kelly got his ass kicked. I mean, up and down, sideways, any way you want to measure it, he got killed by Blake Masters. So that's just my overview going into it. Now I want to play you a handful of cuts and let you bounce off them because you didn't watch it, right?
I did not watch it. This first I've seen of it. I saw a couple of comments that Hugh made on Twitter, but honestly haven't seen anything from this. So I'm coming at it completely fresh or I guess you could also say completely ignorant.
So let me play you some cuts and we will go through and you tell me what you think as far as who got the better of this debate. Here is Blake Masters last night.
I've been focused on the border since day one on this job. I'm down there all the time. I was on the phone this week just with Mayor Nichols of Yuma, Sheriff Daniels of Cochise County, talking about what more we need for Border Patrol and immigration.
That, my friends, is called invasion.
We're working to raise Border Patrol pay by 18%. I've got legislation to do that. I've been focused on the border since day one.
Okay. To no great effect because we have a wide open southern border. So if that's the best you can do, I respectfully request you resign and let's get someone in the seat who will actually secure our border.
Day one. He's been on the border for since day one, says Mark Kelly. And
so let me ask you this. If he's been on the border since day one and we've got a border crisis since day one, where's Mark Kelly been to speak out about the border crisis? Honestly, where's Mark Kelly been, period? Mark Kelly doesn't show up any place. But I mean, if he's been on the border since day one and there's a border crisis, wasn't it incumbent upon Mark Kelly to, I don't know, say something about the border crisis since he's there since day one?
You'd think, wouldn't you? Here is, and that subject came back up a time or two along the way.
I would imagine.
Here's another cut from last night.
For the past 2 years, under Joe Biden and Mark Kelly, we've been going in the wrong direction. Everybody knows it. You are less safe today. Your bills have gone way up since Mark Kelly took over. He's got a bunch of excuses. I think you heard a lot of them here tonight. You know, it's up to you to decide whether excuses are enough. But ask yourself, do you deserve a secure border? Do you deserve to feel safe when you walk outside at night? Do you deserve to be able to afford your own home if you work hard enough? I think the answer is yes. You deserve so much better than what we have. Mark Kelly disagrees. Otherwise, he wouldn't have spent 2 years backing Biden every time. Send me to the U.S. Senate if you think that you and your family deserve better so we can go in the right direction.
Not a bad close.
No, that's a good close. That's a good pitch. I would even say it's very similar to, and maybe he might have been done better by explicitly saying this. Are you better off now than you were 2 years ago?
Yeah.
If you are, vote for Mark Kelly. If not,
sure.
Let's make a change.
Here is another cut where he actually he invoked the C word, which is California. Let me.
It's a pretty powerful word here in Texas too. So I think I know where this is going.
Exactly. Here we go.
A few weeks ago, when the federal government cut Arizona's water allocation, 592,000 acre feet. For all you water nerds out there, that's a lot of water that the feds cut. That's our water. Guess how much California had to cut? 0. Guess what Mark Kelly did about it? Nothing. I'm tired of Senator Kelly acting like the third senator from California. We need someone in there with sharp elbows who's going to fight for our water.
Third senator.
You know what makes that more effective is that Kyrsten Sinema was in there fighting for water, right? She's the one who forced them to introduce that into that stupid Inflation Reduction Act.
And he wasn't. He was AWOL on it. He didn't care.
Yep.
He just asked Chuck Schumer, how do you want me to vote? Okay, great, I'm there, right?
I mean, really, honestly, this guy is nowhere. You never see this guy. And sometimes that's not bad. I think, is it Jim Risch, who is really a background guy in the Senate, but he does a lot of behind the scenes work, a lot of negotiating and that type of thing. And he's not a guy who likes to jump in front of cameras an awful lot. And there's been a few of those in the Senate, but I mean, Mark Kelly's he's just a non-entity there.
All he is just, he's a proxy vote for Chuck Schumer. Here's another clip from last night.
I'm pro-life, and that means I believe in limits. Now, I support exceptions because I don't believe in being extreme on this issue. Senator Mark Kelly is the abortion radical. Senator Kelly in Washington, he voted, actually he sponsored, he didn't just vote for it, he sponsored a bill that would have mandated legal abortion nationwide, get this, up until the moment of birth. Take a second to think about how truly radical that is. Mark Kelly says any abortion is okay for any reason, all the way up until the moment a baby is due to be born. He wasn't the only radical who voted for that bill. He was joined by Elizabeth Warren, by Bernie Sanders. AOC voted for this in the House. And the only countries in the whole world that support Senator Kelly's preferred no limits extreme abortion policy are China and North Korea.
By the way, just a quick side note, the libertarian, the little short libertarian that was off to the side.
Yeah.
Did you hear what his big contribution was?
No.
His big point he was trying to make is we need to argue and have a public debate and maybe change the age of consent.
I'm assuming not upwards.
Downwards, like kids having sex, that kind of thing. It's the pedophile thing. That's what that guy was all about. So everybody kind of ignored it.
It's actually, as you were mentioning this, Ben Domenech is sending it across on Twitter, by the way.
Yeah, the libertarian guy is just a creepy dude. He wants no limits on kids. They should be able to consent as young as, pick them, whatever age you want.
Well, I think what he's missed out on is that those things are voted on. They're statutes, right?
Yes.
I don't understand what we need to have a vote on this. We've had votes on this. And if you want to change
it's pretty established.
First off, that's not a, I don't even understand why he's running for federal office. Then he should be running for a seat in the state legislature, because that's where those statutes are set. But run for a seat in the House on that, well, whatever they call it in Arizona. I think it's the House, or the state Senate, and
right.
and propose it. That's how it works. I don't understand why this libertarian doesn't understand that that's exactly how this thing works.
Exactly. But getting back to this cut, even on the abortion issue, which is supposed to be the salvation issue for the Democrats, right? This is what's going to save them the House and save them the Senate, is the country's going to care about abortion more than anything else. Well, we know that's not going to be true. But even if that were, Mark Kelly didn't have a good answer to that. He just sat there frozen, because that's what his record was. He was one of the ones that voted, and he actually co-sponsored the bill that every Democrat in the Senate voted for, which would have no limits on abortion whatsoever. Now, Masters is a pro-life guy. He doesn't want to see abortion ever, but he's willing as a senator to realize that's not where the state is, and he's trying to bring his views more in line with where the state is.
Right.
You and I have talked about this before, where neither side is where the country is on abortion, but the Republicans are a lot closer, and they can put themselves where the American people are a lot easier and keep riding that wave, their direction over time, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Getting back to the immigration issue, because he used this like a bludgeon over and over and over again. Here's another whack at the illegal immigration stuff.
He's the 50th vote in the U.S. Senate. Joe Biden needed his vote. Mark Kelly, a year ago, could have dug his heels in and said, Mr. President, I'm not supporting a single thing, not a single spending bill, not a single piece of your agenda, unless and until we get border security. Biden would have had to secure the border. Mark Kelly, if this is the result of Senator Kelly being focused on the border, my gosh, he's the most ineffective and worst senator of all time.
So I'm curious, how much did crime come up and how much did the economy come up in this debate?
The economy came up. Actually, there is an economy related thing. Here is
because I think those are the two most powerful. I mean, the border in Arizona is a very powerful.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
Generally speaking, across the entire midterms, I think the economy and crime are going to be the most powerful issues for Republicans. I'm curious as to where Masters was at.
Yeah, you listen to this hook.
He's the 50th vote in the U.S. Senate. Joe Biden needed his vote.
Wait. This is the one I want. Here we go.
But let it be said that Mark Kelly actually is the
greatest threat to seniors' retirement today is the massive, crushing inflation that Joe Biden and Mark Kelly caused. And it's their fault. They caused it. 2 years ago, inflation was 1.5%. Now, in the greater Phoenix metro area, we are suffering from literally the worst inflation in the nation at 13%. Joe Biden's policies caused this, and those are policies that Mark Kelly in Washington has supported every single time.
The biggest threat that seniors face is inflation caused by that.
A lot of retirees. There's a lot of retirees.
There are a ton of retirees in Arizona.
Yeah,
absolutely. Sun City, right?
Sun City West. I mean, really all over Sedona. I mean, you can go all over Arizona. It's a good place for retirees, especially in those areas, because there's infrastructure for them there, because there's so many of them. It's like Florida is for retirees, right? It's warm weather. It's pretty good access to transportation, and it is so they built up the infrastructure for senior living in those places. So yeah, that the whole retiree thing that's a huge thing in Arizona and Florida. Florida is not going to be an issue, but in Arizona it could be a decider.
Two more quick ones. They're both under 20 seconds. This is back to the border, and where this comes into play is the 87,000 IRS agents that Mark Kelly had no problems voting for. As part of that, there was a chance to put 18,000 new Border Patrol agents that Mark Kelly specifically voted against.
Senator Kelly voted for 87,000 new IRS agents in the Inflation Reduction Act. But to do that, first he had to reject, there was an amendment, he rejected hiring 18,000 more Border Patrol agents. Mark Kelly said no to 18,000 more Border Patrol agents.
Now, the companion to this is Kelly said, well, that's not true. That's not true. That's not true. And Blake Masters was waiting for it and immediately came back with this.
Did you not vote to reject 18,000 more Border Patrol agents in the Inflation Reduction Act passage?
Senator.
You know, we
there it is right there.
There are votes that happen in D.C. that have nothing to do with Border Patrol agents, and it might have the title on it, and nothing happens.
Ed, what happens when you what happens when you're explaining?
You're losing.
You don't understand how things work in D.C. Sometimes the votes are kind of confusing.
Let me try to paraphrase Mark Kelly. You don't understand that most of what I do is bullshit.
Yes.
We put titles on things because we want to bullshit you. You don't understand that, but I'm here to explain that to you. Yeah, that's great.
Now, how do you think that plays?
Oh, like a fart in church?
Yes. Yes. He was awful. He was just awful.
Oh,
anyway,
my gosh. Oh,
that was kind of last night. There was moment after moment like that where, you know, Masters, he just had the facts at his command and he didn't waste the opportunity. He hung Joe Biden around Mark Kelly's neck like a lead albatross.
And you know what makes it easy to do that is the fact that Mark Kelly is basically a non-entity. I mean, he's really a non-entity. He doesn't go out. He isn't in front of anything. He isn't really even behind anything. I mean, he just isn't there. So when you are a non-entity, it makes it very easy for your opponents to hang things like that around your neck and make it stick. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty easy to do with Mark Kelly.
I mean, if and when the debate happens with Joe O'Dea and Michael Bennett,
yeah,
who's another non-entity, or Adam Laxalt in Nevada against Catherine Cortez Masto, another non-entity.
So it'd be difficult for Smiley to do that with Murray, for instance. And I know that you like the Smiley Murray race as a dark horse. It's more difficult to do that with Murray because Murray's out front. Murray is active. She is projecting her message on a fairly constant basis.
She is, but she's also defending an indefensible position.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm not saying that she's not vulnerable. I'm not saying she's not vulnerable. She may very well be. But what I'm saying is that strategy won't work as well with Murray as it will with Cortez Masto, as it will with Kelly, as it will with Bennett, because those three are real non-entities. They're just in Chuck Schumer's shadow. Makes it real easy.
They're proxy votes, right?
Yeah, it makes it real easy. Yeah. So, yep. And Hugh is just mentioning on Twitter right now, and I don't want to quote Hugh too often because, you know, if you say his name 3 times, he suddenly appears.
Yeah, but like yes.
Candyman. He says, why didn't Senator Mark Kelly get rocked last night by clear, decisive winner of debate Blake Masters? Because like incumbent presidents facing their first debates, incumbent senators get lazy, don't prep, believe their own press clippings, and then get walloped. Yeah.
That's kind of that's accurate. He just was not prepared, and he figured this is the only one of these I got to do. I'm in the lead. I'm going to win anyway. I just have to show up in a suit and stand there, and no one's going to watch this. No one's going to care. We'll see. But Blake Masters just totally took the bark off him.
Yep. All right. Couple other, news items for today. And we don't have to spend a ton of time on this, but did you see the Washington Post report on what's going on with Vladimir Putin and his inner circle this morning?
I saw something about that.
He's the decisioner. Apparently his entire inner circle is now sort of being excluded from his decisions. And supposedly, intelligence has reported that one of the inner circle went to Putin and basically said, "What the hell are you doing?" The Washington Post doesn't have the identity of that person, but apparently the identity of that person is known and was told to President Biden. this guy is, I mean, it's getting more dangerous because of this, but this guy is losing, and he's losing big. And I think that I think he's in a world of trouble.
Ukraine's getting ready to move on Crimea now.
Well, they have to take Kherson, and that's going to take a little bit of work. The best Russian troops are around Kherson for that reason, by the way, is to
understand
secure Crimea.
But what I'm saying is Crimea is not a settled deal at this point at all, or the prospect of it is not a settled deal. The thing that I found fascinating about this is how Biden reacted to this. Did you hear what Biden said at a fundraiser, at a DNC fundraiser or a Democratic fundraiser last night?
No, I haven't heard that.
He said to he's going to his base, he's going to a fundraiser, he's trying to raise money and to help get out the vote, and he tells them just off the cuff, we're actually closer to a nuclear exchange, a nuclear war, since we have been since 1962.
I did actually see that. Yes. Since that's not a great message to be sending.
That's just tremendous for the president to go full Cuban Missile Crisis, because that's how you rally your side.
Well, I think he thinks that, first off, and look, I mean, I think that might actually still be the case. You got Zelensky out there, who I normally like, but who's out of his mind by publicly calling for the West to conduct preemptive strikes on Russia. It's exactly what we don't want to do. We're trying very hard to make this not World War III, and still support Ukraine in fighting off the invasion. But I mean, he's not reading the room very well over the last 24 hours. I get why he's asking for it, but that's a stupid thing. That's a stupid statement to make publicly.
And it comes on the heels of him trying to do an emergency appeal to join NATO, an expedited join NATO.
There's no way we're going to do an article.
No.
We're going to grant Article 5 to somebody who's already at war with Russia. That is, I mean, I'm sorry, but
no.
Realistically speaking, there's no way that's happening.
No. They have everything they need. They have, as far as they have seized more weapons of war from Russia that's abandoned on the battlefield. They've seized more stuff than anything than everything we've armed them with. Yep. They've got the material. They've got everything they need. They just need to keep doing what they're doing.
Yep. Agreed. All right. One last thing. Jobs report came out today.
Kind of a meh, right?
It's a meh. On its own, it's not a bad jobs report. 263,000. That's pretty good if you're looking at a maintenance level in a healthy economy, right? 263,000 would be actually a pretty good number along those lines. But this isn't yet a healthy economy. It's certainly not a healthy economy in terms of inflation. It is also not quite recovered from the pandemic, and you can see that from the participation rates. This is actually the lowest level of job additions in 18 months. And that is not a good sign. I mean, it just isn't a good sign.
And it also did not meet what expectations were. They were expecting the number to be higher.
They were expecting it to be slightly higher. They were expecting it to be 275, right? Which is itself a fallback from the last 2 months. I mean, July was 515,000, August was 315,000, and so on. So
now we're on final approach for next Thursday when or maybe it's next Tuesday. It's next week is when we get the CPI and the PPI back-to-back days.
Yep.
We get one more round of the fun stuff of where we're at. And with gas,
and then
prices,
at the end of the month we get the third quarter GDP.
The GDP, right? So after last month's number, which still didn't hit the inversion point that they were so praying for, doing a month-to-month decrease. Now gas prices are starting to trickle back up again.
They're going to go up a lot after the
and they're going to go up 30 cents in the next week. That won't appear on the numbers that just happened, but we have had a situation where gas prices have gone up, which tells me I don't see what's going to be the driving factor to drive that inflation rate lower for September than it was in August. Maybe there's something out there that I'm not seeing, but I'm not seeing how that's going to be a healthy Democrat closing message. It's going to be a healthy number for them. I'm just not seeing it.
I don't see it either. But in fact, the only reason why it moderated at all in August and September, or the August and September reports, was because gas prices were actually declining. Well, I mean, we can talk about demand dropped and stuff like that too, but I'm just talking about the inflation curve, right? Gas prices only in September, which means that all those numbers are going to get pushed back up because of all the other categories where inflation's raging. Yeah.
Correct.
So yeah.
So any moderation, it was, it wasn't that it inverted and went down. It kind of just it just slowed the incline a little bit. And we're not doing that anymore. Do you know what gas is out in California where I'm at? I've got a 2018 Ford F-150 truck, big V8 engine, because I'm just tired of people telling me what I can't drive. So I'm driving what they tell me I can't. It has a 30-gallon tank, and that's fine. I don't mind a 30-gallon tank because it means I only have
$200 to fill that sucker up.
$210.
Yeah, was it six? Is it $6.50 a gallon out there now?
It at Costco, where I got gas, it was at about $6.40. If I would have gone to a normal gas station, it would have cost about $6.80 a gallon, $6.90 a gallon in Orange County. Yep. There are parts of LA in the Valley where it's actually over $8.
Unbelievable. You know what it is here? In Central Texas, the undisclosed location, just under 310, like 308, 307. Yeah.
Well, but again, it's going to go up because OPEC has decided to pull back 2 million barrels a day.
2 million barrels a day, yeah.
And the U.S. could easily make that up, and used to make that up. In fact, we are pumping now about 3 million. If I remember the stat right, we're pumping about 3 million less than we were under peak Trump.
Yeah.
We could eat up that difference and clean up, but no, we have Joe Biden and the Democrats and John Kerry.
Oh yeah, but they'll buy it from Venezuela. They'll make concessions to Maduro so they can buy it from Venezuela.
But yeah, we would much. He hates the Republicans, and he hates the American economy so much. He would much rather ease relations with a Marxist thug in Caracas than he would letting American oil companies do their thing. It's just it's 24. 24 can't come soon enough.
But Gavin Newsom's going to fight inflation in California. He's giving everybody stimulus checks.
Oh yes.
Because what you really need in inflation is
the
demand stimulus.
Yes.
Demand stimulus. That's great.
Here's what we need to do. Everything costs a ton of money, and we already have in fact, the reason gas prices are so high in California is because we've got 2 refineries that were going so balls to the walls the last year that they had to go offline for a bit. Otherwise, if they didn't do the standard maintenance on them, the things would blow up because of falling into disrepair. They had to do that, which took those refineries offline. There's no supply of gas out here. That's why the price jacked up. So what does Gavin Newsom do? Let's give everybody some money so they can afford gas better. Okay. And where's that gas coming from again? So now that there's more money chasing that, where's that gas coming from again? Oh, that's right. The supply's not there. There isn't a soul in Sacramento that apparently passed with a C grade in high school microeconomics.
Nope. Or macroeconomics. Either way.
Well, micro is understanding what the supply demand curve means. Macro is
monetary policy.
Monetary policy. I'm just talking about the supply demand curve. They don't have the foggiest idea how this works.
Basic economics, just basic economics, not microeconomics, not macro, just basic economics. They have not figured out supply.
The supply-demand curve is as automatic, and it's just as much a law of physics as an apple falling off the tree and hitting the guy in the head. It's just ridiculous that these people can't understand.
So I guess we're not going to call him Sir Isaac Newsom, is what you're saying.
No, we're not. We're not. He's just. But I'll tell you what, he's going to be.
Got to give me credit for that one, right?
Oh, it was very good.
Sir Isaac Newsom. Right? Okay.
He's going to be the Democratic nominee if this election, if this wave goes the way I think it is. Joe Biden is going to have the LBJ meeting with the party bosses, and I'm seeing more and more Gavin Newsom's going to be the nominee.
Well, I guess we'll find out in next week's exciting episode of the Ed Morrissey Show, the Eddie and Duane Show. But what's coming up on tomorrow's Hugh Hewitt? Sorry, it wouldn't be tomorrow. Mondays. What am I talking about? Saturday. What's coming up on Monday's Hugh Hewitt Show? You forgot what we have done here. On Monday's show, we are going to speak with our friend Selena Zito, Jake Sherman, Josh Kroshauer, Joe O'Dea, Colorado Senate candidate extraordinaire, and former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo will be joining us. Wow. Great lineup. Starts at 6 a.m. Eastern Time, 5 a.m. in God's time zone, 3 a.m. on the left coast. And if you're a member of the Universe, HUGHNIVERSE.com, troll-free web surfing experience for Hugh Hewitt fans and listeners, you can actually watch the Hugh Hewitt Show. If you're not, you can always tune it in on your AM radio dial. And Duane, what should people do if they can't find it on their AM radio dial? Well, I guess what they should do is they should go to a Caracas radio station and normalize relations there, because apparently that's what we do now. Apparently that is what we do. I was going to say, go talk to Blake Masters, because he could probably tell you exactly where you can find it. But because he's at least the only one in the Arizona Senate race that can apparently find the border. But well, I wouldn't even talk about what we would get if we asked Jeff Zucker about it over at CNN. We probably get double secret suspension. Probation. Yeah, we would be banned on. We would be taken off of 400 affiliates for no reason, and never know about it, right? And never know. Actually, what I would say is you go into an AM radio station, general manager, and say, look, if you don't put Hugh Hewitt on your air, we're going to make Jeff Zucker your new boss. That's a good threat. That's a really good threat. All right. Well, Duane Patterson at Radio Blogger, by the way, has a great VIP column up yesterday. You should go back and check that out if you haven't seen it yet. The case for and against Glenn Youngkin, who is, I'm telling you, after what we heard about him, he did not do the Sherman-esque denial. He's laying in the weeds, but he's going to get into this game. I know it in my gut. He's going to get into this game. He's going to wait till January or February. He's going to look around and he's going to go, yeah, I could probably do this and spin something up pretty quick. There you go. That's exactly what I think they're going to probably end up seeing. So stay tuned for that. Duane, thanks for being with us today. We will talk to you again next week. Wednesday on the after show, Friday right here on the Ed Morrissey Show. Look forward to it. Wednesday on the after show. See you then. Stay tuned for my editorial and one last message from the Ed Morrissey Show. This is Ed Morrissey of hotair.com for Town Hall. Forget the polls for now. If you want to know how the election cycle is going for Democrats, just read the Washington Post report on their new strategy for the midterms. Democrats are not talking about any accomplishments and have instead adopted a dark midterm message focusing on a supposed Republican dystopia. Many of you will remember Joe Biden set this course with his soulless demagoguery of Republicans in August at Independence Hall. Now, his party is picking up on those same dark themes as we press toward the election. With their only accomplishments being inflation, lost buying power, higher crime, and a massive border crisis, it's no wonder Biden and his team want to talk about anything but themselves. The problem is, voters can't afford Biden's darkness any longer. I'm Ed Morrissey. Welcome back to the Ed Morrissey Show podcast. Joining me right now is Janine Marrone from Support After Abortion, and talking about a new study in regards to Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. Support After Abortion is supportafterabortion.com. And as you might hear and understand when Janine explains this to you, this is designed to help women who are going through pregnancy issues. And Janine, what else does Support After Abortion do? Let's just start off by talking about who you are and what the group does.
Well, Support After Abortion is really the bridge, an advocacy group, as well as a training organization for men and women who have been impacted by abortion, and those healers that are out there that need more help and assistance in providing that healing.
You know, and it's unfortunately a very large market, because this country still does about 350,000 medical abortions a year, and maybe more than that in terms of pharmacological abortions. I'm not sure exactly what those numbers are, but I mean, there's a lot of people who get damaged in this, and we just add to it every single year.
Absolutely. It could be as high as 1 million. We know it may be somewhere between 700,000 and 1 million. Half of those are something called a medication abortion, which is that it's a do-it-yourself at home abortion. And the rest can be called surgical abortions, which happen in the abortion facility. And both are bad. And then the study that we just did even suggests that the unintended consequences are even worse from these things called medication abortions or do-it-yourself abortions. They're also called pill abortions as well.
Yeah.
A variety of different chemical abortion. Also, all are associated with this new wave, new growing trend of abortions at home. They've been around since 2000, but there's a steep incline to now where half of abortions are done in this fashion today at home.
You know, I have a sneaking suspicion I might understand why that is. And before we even get into the statistics, let's talk about why that is. You know, the thing about surgical abortions is that for the most part, it's a very clinical process, right? I mean, this is something where the woman doesn't actually see what's being vacated out of her uterus. It's antiseptic in that sense, and certainly not necessarily in every single clinic, as we found out with Kermit Gosnell, but the process in most clinics is what you would say maybe just antiseptic in that sense, which is that there's a real disconnect between what's going on and how the woman perceives it. But with a medication abortion, a pill abortion, the aborted fetus is immediately presented to the woman, and it's got to be an extremely traumatic experience.
The way you just described it was you didn't stumble over it like I did in an interview a couple of days ago. I didn't know what to say about that, but you're right. Recently, I was in Bryan, Texas, and I saw one of the older Planned Parenthoods, the one that Abby Johnson was at. If you've ever been there, they'll show you it's eerie. But when the abortionist takes this child, this fetus from the woman, it goes into a container and it moves into another room, which they call products of conception. If you've seen Unplanned, that's kind of that process.
Yep.
If you've also seen Unplanned, to use Abby Johnson again in that movie, she's had a chemical or medication abortion where she's in the shower. And so what you just described is that contrast in these two particular procedures. Both are terrible, but the one that's happening at home in the shower, or if it's on the toilet, is these products of conception, and let's call it a fetus, but it's a child. And the woman, in this case, she's alone. There's nobody there in most cases, and she's delivering this child, this product of conception, and then is responsible for its removal. It sees what is going on and has to, flush the toilet, eliminate, put it in a paper bag. Whatever is going on is truly horrifying by anybody's imagination, and is not really talked about. But it is creating a crisis that is, if we think surgical is bad, that crisis of the at-home abortion is even worse. And our studies show that.
Janine, I would have even made that connection had I not watched Unplanned and had I not heard Abby Johnson speak about that. And just to reflect on the power of what Abby Johnson does. And I'm definitely pro-life, or I'm very much opposed to abortion, but that particular connection would not have been apparent to me without watching that film, without watching Unplanned. And I think that this is part of the problem as well, is that the young women who are given these medications are not really prepared for that. They're not really prepared for what that traumatic experience is going to be like. And like you said, and what to do afterwards. I mean, what do you do afterwards? This is really leaving them hanging out to dry in a very, very real way. They're leaving these young women out to dry.
It's interesting that you put it that way, because at Support After Abortion, I mentioned we do have a hotline, so we take calls, and in addition, we help prepare men and women in agencies that are in organizations who want to deal with men and women who have had abortions. But because of our name, Support After Abortion, we get calls from people who are contemplating abortion. Because when you say you support after abortion, the culture thinks, well, I thought this was supposed to cure my ill. Why would I need support afterwards? So we hear from, particularly in this case, women who are calling to say, well, tell me about that. So the truth, the facts of what is going on in abortion, is particularly in now medical abortion, since it's on the rise, is just not being disclaimed. If by sheer virtue, the truth, the facts, the realities of these decisions that men and women are making on these topics were there, how many less, or how many more, and how many less abortions would actually be taking place? And that's really a big part of this interview, I hope, and certainly what Support After Abortion does. We have we call them our 3 C's, if you will, of what we feel to be responsible for. One, with 3 C's, the first C is to build compassion around men and women who have had abortion, that they just didn't decide to do this. There's a woundedness that is in place before the decision for abortion happens. And then, of course, that's all shrouded with the lack of facts that we just talked about. The second is to build a collaboration of the plethora of organizations, churches, civic associations, maternity homes, the pro-life, in some cases, not even connected to any pro-life or pro-choice connection, just people who want to understand and heal woundedness. And then the third is, you mentioned a number. Through our research and then understanding how many men and women who've been impacted by abortion and who would seek help if they knew where to go to get it, there's 22 million men and women, if they knew where to go to get help, healing, begin a process of healing after abortion, 22 million, they wouldn't know where to go to get it. And we don't have the capacity for that healing. So, and that's the space that Support After Abortion hopes to fill, and that's what we're doing today to make that difference. So compassion, collaboration, and then building capacity.
SupportAfterAbortion.com. Just going back into the study that you're talking about, this is a 5-year interview-based survey of women who'd had abortions. I'm sorry. That was that's the Turnaway study, that does that, which is a flawed study. Your study is looking at a different set. And tell us a little bit about the findings that you get from your survey.
Thank you for putting that. This is objective. It's a randomized study based on census information. So it's not like we just set out a sign in Southwest Florida and said, anyone who's had an abortion, come and we'll interview you. That's not the way we did this. We were looking for the truth. All we wanted were to understand the facts around abortion. We started with pregnancy loss, but specifically we were looking for the facts around abortion so that we could design and promote and advocate what was best for those that were in our country. So that's kind of the methodology, if you will. And we did 4 different studies. The first one was all pregnancy loss. The second one was narrowed specifically on abortion. The third was men. The first 2 were women. The third was men in abortion. And this most recent one, which we're talking about, is the medication abortion, which were those that were impacted directly with this chemical pill-based abortion. What we found out is that 34% of women suffer after a medication abortion. 63% sought help. They mostly went to their friends, because over 80%, when asked if they knew where to go, didn't.
Right.
That number is consistent in all of our studies, whether you ask women or men who have had abortions or not had abortions, they don't know where to go. And as we know, there's the church environment. There are pregnancy centers. There's 2,500 pregnancy centers. Many have healing programs. There are individual programs that there's in fact over 200 individual programs designed to help men and women with abortion. So what the biggest things that we found out is that there is pain after abortion. With medical abortion, it's even more than surgical. That many were looking for help, that they didn't know where to go. We also learned, and this is consistent throughout all of our studies, that particularly women were looking for an anonymous program for healing. And because 80% of them seldom were going to church, the faith-based approach of retreat or Bible study was not appealing. So
that's interesting.
Yes. So if we're going to be that healing network, we need to meet men and women, particularly in this case, women, where they are with that to which they were most likely be attracted. That's the case.
It's a great point, because I don't think people make that often enough, because faith groups do such great work right in this space. They do. There's a ton of, you talk about 2,500 pregnancy care centers and around the country who are doing really good work. A lot of those are faith-based. Yeah. And I think there's 2 things that go on here. One is, I think that you're right. I think especially after a traumatic experience like that, the idea of undergoing a retreat, even if you are a church-going person. I mean, I've been on retreats. I'm not necessarily sure that I'd want to be on a lengthy retreat after undergoing some sort of trauma. It's intense, and that type of intensity can scare people off. But the other part of this too, and I think that this is something that maybe we don't have a great handle on, is even for those women and men who are going through this, who may be coming from a faith background, it is that they are going to feel extremely disconnected from that faith, right? In the aftermath of this, they're going to feel guilt, they're going to feel shame. And the last thing they want to do is go to their own church and talk to people about what they've just been through, because they're going to be afraid of what the reaction is.
I think I love it when we can have this kind of conversation, because you just said exactly what I said earlier. That word is compassion. Yep. And can you imagine you're a church-going individual, maybe you have not been impacted by abortion, and someone tells you they've had an abortion. The normal reaction is not usually going to be pleasant. It could be judgmental. It could be, I need to get out of here. Instead of saying something like, I am so sorry for your loss. Right. And that is the most compassionate thing that we can say to anyone, because as we know, and this is not only true for abortion, but it's also miscarriage, we don't allow as a culture men and women who have suffered pregnancy loss, particularly abortion, the opportunity to grieve that loss. And if we can, as a culture, become more mercy driven, as we, especially as faith-based church-going people should be, mercy, right? Judgment, please. And then, me too. I mean, all of us, on whatever it is that we have our, predisclosed opinions on. Abortion is murder. You are a murderer, as opposed to understanding that is not what that individual wanted to do. And if we can be more compassionate, We can be more mercy driven. We will be more attractive to as a faith, as a religious group, as people who want to be healers. So I'll pause on that because I know I just said a mouthful, but
you did. That was great.
And I'm trying not to preach to the choir, by the way, because it's for me it was a revolutionary thing when I first learned about that men and women were also that have had abortions are victims of their circumstances in many cases.
Right.
And what you and I are talking about right now, the lack of the truth, the lack of enough people understanding how to communicate the truth without being judgmental and condemning.
And I think this is a good point to settle on, actually, because this is exactly what I think support after abortion is all about, is providing the not just compassion directly, which you clearly do, but also providing the support structures that allow other people to focus on that as an approach. And I think that that's the key here for supportafterabortion.com. Tell us a little bit more about supportafterabortion.com, how people can get involved, where you can be found, and you know, how to help out the organization.
I think first of all, it is supportafterabortion.com, and there's a variety of different ways. First of all, we are looking for volunteers. We're also looking for men and women in organizations who are providing healing to become part of our partner network. So again, I mentioned collaboration. In collaboration, there's so many different silos of activity. So joining together forces, and then thirdly, if you have been impacted by abortion, not even directly you having it, but if you've taken someone for an abortion, or if you're in an extended family where a mom or a dad or an aunt or an uncle has had an abortion, to gain help. And also, if you are suffering from any of the woundedness that leads to abortion, all of these things are inside of the virtual walls of support after abortion, where there's a huge opportunity to become a teacher, a volunteer, a counselor. There's provisions for healing. There's ways to learn language, and all of that you can do at supportafterabortion.com.
supportafterabortion.com. Be sure to go there. Janine Marrone, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Ed. It's a treat. Thank you.
And stay tuned for just a little bit more from the Ed Morrissey Show coming up next. Thank you for watching or listening to the Ed Morrissey Show podcast. You can subscribe to us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and through the Town Hall Media Player, or you can just come to hotair.com and watch my podcast for free. However, I'd also love to have you join us as members of our VIP and VIP Gold programs. That allows us to defeat the stranglehold that big tech has on information and get you the best information that we possibly can. Plus, we have a lot of new value-added content coming to us from Town Hall Media stars and my good friend Adam Baldwin. He and I are doing the video series, The Amiable Skeptics. It's 1 hour of discussion a week, strictly for our VIP and VIP Gold members. Plus, we have our VIP Gold chat with Kem Edwards every Wednesday afternoon at 1:30 p.m. We'd love to have you as members. Be sure to join up. Thanks again for watching the Ed Morrissey Show podcast.